My name is John Stotts. I'm the Director of Adult Faith Formation here at Christ the King Catholic Church. It was not raining when I got here this morning, but here it comes. Happy to see you all on this beautiful spring morning. Last June, after the murder of George Floyd by 4 Minneapolis police officers, a number of parishioners gathered on Zoom in a series of discussions what happens and what keeps happening in our society, and how the people of Christ the King must respond. The major outcome of these reflection sessions was the creation of Christ the King's anti-racism ministry, a framework for Christ the King parishioners to create and participate in various grassroots efforts that promote racial justice issues within our own parish and also help us to collaborate with ventures in the wider Nashville community. If you want to get involved, we're having a forum this Thursday night at 7 p.m. on Zoom. All the information is on our website. You can register for that. We'll hear from our active working groups, those who've been working on various projects over the past 9 months. We'll reflect on where we've been, and we'll think creatively together about new projects for the next 6 months or so. So if you want to get involved, that's your next best opportunity. One of our current active projects is designed to create opportunities for our community to better understand the history of white supremacy and how various institutions continue to sustain racist practice despite the work of our better angels. And so these past 4 weeks of sessions have been the outcome of this work. And a special thank you to Jim O'Hara for reaching out to various of our presenters and making this happen. At the end of his book, Racial Justice in the Catholic Church, theologian Brian Massingale reflects on the distinction the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made between desegregation and integration. According to King, desegregation is a negative force. It works against racism. It eliminates racial barriers to equal participation in society, and it can be accomplished through legal prohibition and initiative. But he didn't think it was enough. Desegregation, in King's words, can only create, quote, a society where people are physically desegregated and spiritually segregated, where elbows are together and hearts are apart. It gives us a social togetherness and a spiritual apartness. What we need, King goes on, is more than wary coexistence. We need integration, the positive acceptance of desegregation, the welcome embrace of the other as a full participant in social, economic, and political life. Integration is meaningless without the sharing of power and responsibility in society. So we're turning today to talk about the history of desegregation in our own city, and perhaps the ongoing need for true integration is Deacon Bill Hill. He's a native Nashvilleian who attended St. Vincent de Paul and Father Ryan High School. He became a deacon in 2006 and earned his master's in theology from St. Meinrad Seminary and School of Theology in 2012. His wife, Ethelene, is a Baptist minister, and she also has a master's degree in Christian education. They have 4 kids, 3 grandkids. And I'll note too, and hopefully Deacon Bill will talk about this later on again, he's recently started the Katharine Drexel Scholarship Endowment at Father Ryan to address the legacy of St. Katharine Drexel in assisting Black students in acquiring a Catholic education in our diocese. There's material about this in our weekly emails. Do please consider making a donation to this valuable fund. So without further ado, Deacon, the floor is yours. We look forward to learning from you this morning.
Good. Okay, can you hear me? Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. Uh-oh, I don't think everybody can hear me, John.
No,
Good morning.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I want to start by first apologizing. I did a slideshow and I'm not real good at these slides. And then I sent it to my daughter and my grandson and they cleaned the slides up for me. And somehow or another, I think I ended up with the old slides. So I'm gonna apologize to them as we start. Okay, great. Let me start out here. This will be the second session. This first page, I guess the title page, I call it Major Leaders in the Black Catholic Movement in the Diocese. And I tried to put two men, I tried to be diverse, I guess. I put 2 men and 2 women. Last time we talked about Katharine Drexel, you know, she was the one who started the whole process. And then to her right, I mean, right below her on the left lower is, and that's what it was. That's Bishop Byrne. Actually, it should be Bishop Durick under the new one, but it didn't make it into the last one. And then at the top we have Dr. Tarleton, and I'm gonna talk about him because I think he was the one who was maybe most responsible for bringing about desegregation of the Diocese of Nashville at the present time. And then the bottom right is a lady who, Sister Joanne Cozy. She was at the Daughters of Charity, and she was the one who actually built a new St. Vincent school in the 90s. Okay. All right, so let's go. I talked about prelude to desegregation. I think I may have already talked about some of these before. I got well, let me just go over them. I've got Bishop Harold Perry. I think I talked about him last time. He was not a bishop in Nashville, but he was had a relative here. And he visited Nashville several times a year. The second, well, I'm just gonna go to the photos. The second person is Charles Johnson. Now, I did not know who Charles Johnson was 1 month ago. 3 weeks ago, his son called me and he wanted me to do his grandson called me, who wanted me to do a graveside service for his daddy. And he was a national renowned architect who had taught at Vassar for like 30 years. And in all of his, when I started reading about him, one of the things that he cited many times was his education at St. Vincent de Paul, you know, and he thought that was one of the greatest things in his world. So even though he was 89 years old, his son said, he said, I didn't even know that there was still a St. Vincent. So anyway, I kind of looked at him and I kind of looked at the relationship. Now, some of you may have seen the Tennessee Register on the 14th, and that was an article pretty much about Charles Johnson. Well, when the folks called me and wanted me to do the graveside service, I tried to get the Register to try and kind of cover it. They didn't make it to the graveside service, but they did make it, you know, they did do what I thought was a pretty good article trying to explain the relationship between Fisk University and the idea of desegregation and their push for desegregation. And then the other one is, okay, and so let me just go on. I had a slide here just trying to talk about the environment. So I just picked 3 or 4 things that really happened before the Brown decision. The first one is in 1945, a Black student from McNamara Academy allowed to compete with whites in an oratorical contest. That kind of hit me an idea that in order for a Black student to go to oratorical contest with white students in a Catholic school, both of them are Catholic institutions, you had to get permission from the bishop. I went over to the archives at Pearl High School, and I saw a picture of a spelling contest. Now, what happened with the Black students at the McNamara Academy, the St. Vincent also, is that they could participate in these types of events only for Black students. And the picture I saw, it had Pearl High School, had Haynes High School, it had NCI, which was the another private high school. So that just kind of shows you that to me, the environment was that, okay, Black Catholics, you are required to associate with Black schools, and you don't really associate with white Catholics at all. Then number 2 was October 1953. Talk about this one for a little while. That was Bishop Adrian adds East Nashville to Holy Family boundary for Blacks. Now we had a boundary system, so my thought was that this was the way this went down. Dr. Tarleton, who was from out of state, decided that, he worked at Meharry Medical College. He decided that when he moved over to East Nashville and bought him a house near Meigs High School, that he would go to the closest Catholic church, which was Holy Name. And so he went to Holy Name probably 2 or 3 months, and he said, "Oh, this is fine." So I go to Holy Name. He said, "Let me go." He decided to go see the pastor, and he went to see the pastor. He said, "Look, I want to join Holy Name." And the pastor said, "Give me some envelopes." And the pastor said, "Okay, hold up. I'll get back with you." As a result of that, the bishop put out a new boundaries for the for the Black Catholics, if you will. Before, the boundary line ended at the river. You know, if you were north of the river, you went to St. Vincent. If you were south of the river, you went to Immaculate Mother Holy Family Church. So I think this may have been what was happening. So the idea that in �53, and this is October of '53, then you really had that segregation of Blacks and whites, Catholics. Kind of interesting for me, I guess, because when I stayed with my grandmama, a lot of times I would ride the bus. The closest church to me, I guess, was Holy Name, and I never did go inside Holy Name. In fact, I have never been inside Holy Name to the day. But I would always ride by the bus, and I would think about, hey, you know, I had to go to church and to school, and I think I had to go maybe 10 miles further, but then I had to go through downtown, stop, transfer, and get on another bus. Okay. The third one is talk about Bishop Adrian denied a request to accept Black members of St. Teresa in Memphis and in school, just to kind of show you the environment. Back then, Memphis was still a part of our diocese. And the fourth one is the 1954, Bishop Adrian allowed priests to vote on desegregation. Okay, I didn't know that, and I found that in a book by Mark Newman called Desegregating the South. But when it came time to decide, I mean, you just took it to a vote. And desegregation, Memphis said no, and Nashville said yes. And then the last thing I had was the Brown decision. Now, Brown was kind of interesting in that it said that, you know, the decision itself said that it was unlawful, inappropriate to segregate on the basis of race in education. At this particular time, there was a move to, and there were plans to build a new school for Immaculate Mother Academy. But as a result of that, they closed down Father Ryan. Closed down Immaculate Mother Academy, and the students, all the Black students were required to go to either Cathedral or Father Ryan. And then I just did a little timeline. It said once schools were desegregated, no longer a requirement for Catholic children to attend a Catholic school with threat of excommunication. So before then, you had, if you were Catholic, you went to a Catholic school, but now, you know, that requirement was removed, so that you know, if you didn't want to go to school with Black folks, then you could still remain in the Catholic Church. September '54, Father Ryan was desegregated, and 15 Black students were enrolled. And there's some in the community protested about vandalizing the school. And it's not a whole lot of stuff. I think people threw rocks at it. You know, my daughter, she did this slide, and she called it mine or something. I don't know. But Black schools, and then one of the next slide, the next slide says that Black students were excluded from social events as white parents organized to prevent integration. And the Father Ryan and Cathedral would only desegregate schools in Nashville until 1963, despite the federal order to desegregate. And that's just showing you a picture of Father Ryan. Now, what was the impact? A lot of people may not know the impact. And I put a little thing here. I just pulled some demographic data, and excuse me, but my daughter cleaned this slide up, and the newer version is somewhere out in space. But I'm just taking time. Let's say 1955. Well, let's just go to 1958. I'm sorry, and it said that there were 339 students at St. Vincent. Okay, I thought, well, no, 1963, it said it's 467 students at St. Vincent in 1963. I thought that that had to be wrong. I mean, you know, it's a little school. It's got 10 rooms, most of them small. And so what I did is I went out and I found a brochure from 1960. And this is 1960, and it's showing, people talk about class size, and I thought about class size, but it was the first grade with Sister Noberta. Now in the first grade on that picture at that time, in 1960, there were 52 students, you know, in the first grade. And that shows you one impact of closing Holy Family, I mean, the school on Holy Family's campus, and you know, requiring all the students to go to one to go to one school. And sometimes I say, you know, Holy Family, I mean, Holy Family was the K through 8 school, and Immaculate Mother was the high school. And then on the other picture shows you the 5th grade, and I showed you the 5th grade. It was 42 students in that. Okay, and the only reason why I showed you that is because I'm in that class, you know. So, but it was kind of that was one of the impacts which I don't know that anybody even thinks about, you know. But I guess I had to live with it. But we did all right, I think. Time now for desegregation. Okay, I think I've got this one already in here. Desegregation. Okay, that was. Okay, let me go here. The Brown decision. Okay, and my question here was, did the Brown decision change anything? Okay. And I mean, you know, you had the Brown decision, I think, in 1954, but then you came in 1955 and you came with this whole idea of, okay, they put the term in there with all deliberate speed. And that means whatever you want it to mean. And I just show you a picture of, in the South, it was just a whole lot of different additional lawsuits. And on this picture here, and my daughter cleaned it up, and I give you another. I show you maybe a contrast, if you will. You see the Supreme Court, which you know, the 9 justices of the Supreme Court, and you see that they are all white. And then the people, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the ones who had who filed the lawsuit, most were Black, and you know, those were the major attorneys in that lawsuit. Okay. Going up to just a couple of other environmental things, and I can't see. Okay, Bishop Adrian, this was refused to allow St. Mary's Hospital in Knoxville to desegregate in the 1960s. And in 1961, diocese rejected the effort to start interracial council by National Catholic Conference for Interracial Justice. So the idea was that you had Brown, and when you had Brown decision came out, everybody said, "Hey, this is new. This is a landmark decision." But essentially, very little happened. I think we had a few students go to Father Ryan, and actually, the Catholic schools were much better than the Protestants. When the decision came out, it was a lot of litigation in Nashville, and then the first, I think the first day of school, Nashville adopted okay, we're going to desegregate 1 grade a year, and you're gonna start with the 1st grade. Okay, I stayed with my grandmama, and I remember this one because I would have been zoned to Hattie Cotton School out in East Nashville. Well, the school started on Monday, and they had I think 3 or 4 Black 1st graders come, and on Tuesday night the school was bombed. So that kind of ended the desegregation. So while the Catholic Church wasn't, to me, they wasn't great. To me, they were in a sense they were better than the secular schools, if you will. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm coming to. Just kind of wanted to show Brown. There was a big decision. Okay, we said we will. The bishop came out. And he said, you know, we good people, good Christians, and we're going to comply with the letter of the law, and we're going to desegregate our schools. Well, that sounds real good, and I thought it was real good. And then later on, I found out that there may have been another motivation. Immaculate Mother Academy and the Holy Family were on the campus, and they sold the campus for $300,000 to Sears Roebuck, which in 1954, which was a nice little piece of money. So it may have been that. But the idea comes that if truly you wanted to do this, you wanted to desegregate because it was a Christian thing to do and you comply with the law, then why did you take the money that you got from selling the school and build a segregated school, okay, in Memphis? Father Bertram, in 1957, they took the money and they built a segregated high school in Memphis. So sometimes, you know, what you say and your actions, you know, they don't equate, be the same. Okay, but anyway, I just kind of wanted to show you that's basically what's happening here. You had Father Ryan, and you started. I just wanted to talk about, and this was just kind of a little timeline. My daughter did this one, so I'm gonna try to talk about this one. You had September 54, you had the Ryan and Cathedral designated, desegregated in part. And I said in part because you had the social and athletic events were still separate. When Father Ryan desegregated in 54, they said, okay, the biggest highlight of springtime is the prom. They said, well, you know, we can't have a prom. So they didn't have a prom that year. I think they had kind of a little social event, dinner or luncheon or whatever. And then I think blacks were not allowed to come to, they started having the prom again the next year, but blacks were not allowed into prom until 1962. Athletic events were still separate. You had a situation where I told you before about it in the parochial league. Blacks were allowed to participate in basketball, but they were not allowed to participate in football. Pretty much one of the factors in there was that the diocese controlled Father Ryan, and Father Ryan controlled the basketball gym, while the Knights of Columbus controlled the football field, and they were not allowed blacks to apply. And as Gino told you the last time, you know, I think you recall that, you know, he said that, you know, once the economic factor came in, you know, they allowed you to play football. Okay, and I want to talk about just, okay, so it kind of lumbered along from like 54 to 62. And then one event happened in 62 that kind of changed the whole atmosphere. Well, I'll take it and I'm gonna go back through it. And I'm gonna go through that little third line. February 62, that's second slide, through July 63, the Holy Name Society attempts to have Bishop Adrian desegregate the diocese. Okay, that's, I guess, the biggest thing that I want to talk to about in this particular one. Okay, and I got a slide just for that one, just for chronology of that event. So you have the Holy Name Society. And the Holy Name Society was a group of 4 individuals from St. Vincent. Dr. Tarleton, Dr. Wilson, Mr. Paul King, and I think Mr. Craig here. You know, it was some individuals from St. Vincent. And they decided, okay, and then the thing that happened was that in February 17th of 1962, the principal of Cathedral had an assembly, and she told the black students, now this, let me set the time. The time was, this was the sit-in movements, and students were marching. Some of the marches would be right down West End of Broadway, you know, near the school. And so the teacher, I mean, the principal told them, said, look, don't you even think about participating in these marches. You know, it's not appropriate. You're not gonna do it. Okay, innocent enough. I think it happened on the 17th. Well, one of the people who was in the march was a Cheryl Mitchell. And it was actually 2 Cheryl Mitchell. We call them one on Cheryl Mitchell on Underwood and one on Cheryl Mitchell on Scoville Street. But Cheryl Mitchell's mother was named Noella Mitchell. Okay, and she sent a letter in on March 5th complaining about the Black Cathedral students being mistreated. She said, you're being mistreated, and they were singled out and embarrassed. Okay, well, the bishop did not take too kindly to that letter. So he dashed off a letter, and he tells Noella Mitchell, who's actually a Dr. Mitchell. I didn't even know that till last night I found out. She's a Catholic from New Orleans. And interesting part of this is that the bishop in New Orleans at least in print, took a different view of segregation. You know, he put out some and I didn't understand it last night till I found out she was actually from New Orleans. Why I would see a letter from the Bishop of New Orleans, you know, who has nothing to do with this. But he and his position was that segregation was a moral principle, and that it was something that almost amounted to a sin, you know, in his view. Okay, so the bishop responds, and he said it was uncalled for, and then you know, we're not going to allow students to participate in marches or demonstrations, and that you know, you need to be more charitable toward other folks. In other words, he kind of turned it around on her. So the Holy Name Society, you know, they said, okay, Bishop, we want a meeting with you, and so they requested a meeting with him. And then and later on in that month, in number 4, the chancellor responds that the bishop considers the matter closed. You know, in other words, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And then you see another letter. Holy Name Society met with the Monsignor. They went back after the bishop wouldn't meet with them. They went back and they went through the pastor, and they actually did get a meeting. They met with Monsignor Signer and presented a list of racially discriminatory practices among Catholic institutions. This was their opening, I guess. And the Holy Name Society said racial discrimination was a matter of faith and morals as defined by the Catholic Church. So this was where you come in with the moral issue, you know. Okay, racial discrimination is a matter of faith and morals. And then this is where the bishop may have made his fatal mistake. And in number 6, and April 30th of 62, he responded with a letter that said, look, segregation is not an issue of faith and morals. But then he went on and he said, slavery is not intrinsically wrong. You know, he just kind of added that. And kind of the old statement for the day is, hey, yeah, we need to desegregate, but we need to desegregate gradually. Kind of like what the Supreme Court said with all deliberate speed. So let's just take this here. We don't want to upset that. And then he ended it with, you need to be like the Irish and Italians and prove yourself worthy before, you know, we'll let you participate. Hey, you know, I don't know what he was doing and what he was thinking, but then it was a handwritten letter. So he just kind of read it out, you know, wrote it out. So, you know, sometimes I tell folks, I can remember when I was over there with Bishop Furd, and he would do something, he'd get mad and he'd write out a letter, and I said, you read it? I said, yeah. He said, what do you think, Bill? I said, you happy? I said, yeah. You happy with it now? And I tear it up and throw it in the trash can, you know. And I think it's probably what he needed to do this time, you know, just get it off your chest. All right, and then in number 7, he just said Holy Name Society, and this was beautiful because this was Dr. Tarleton, a man of patience and intellect. I mean, you know, he was just, and he strategized this whole case. He elevated the matter to the apostolic delegate, arguing that racial discrimination is indeed sinful. Okay, well, and what he had done is he had found a document in the Catholic Church, I think in 58, which said basically the same argument that he had. So it was like he knew the answer. He was almost like a lawyer. He knew the answer before you know, he asked the question. So anyway, when it came down and he elevated to the apostolic delegate, and then number 8, the apostolic bishops comes in and he says, yeah, he says he issued a corrective statement. And it was interesting, and it said that in the mind of the church, you know, not his, he's representing the church, but his word, that in the mind of the church, racial segregation is a matter of faith and morals. So you kind of get, you know, you get the idea, okay, all right, y'all got me on this one, but, you know, hey, it's not over. And then I think he said he still. So in number 9, you have the bishop meet, as a follow-up to that, the Holy Name Society met with the bishop. Oh man, I've got a stack of papers here, about 2 inches thick, designating meetings between the bishop and the Holy Name Society and different groups. What the bishop was saying was that, look, what I want you to do is, well, okay, once he said, okay, St. Thomas Hospital. He said, well, you know, you can go meet with St. Thomas Hospital, but I really don't have any authority over St. Thomas Hospital in terms of making them desegregate. They didn't accept Black patients at St. Thomas Hospital. In fact, St. Thomas Hospital, just one example from St. Thomas Hospital. I don't know if many of you, some of you may know John James, and his wife was Helen James. She worked at St. Thomas Hospital for a number of years as an elevator operator. Now, her story to me, and she's dead now, but her story to me was that, the nuns were somehow or another, they ignored her. I mean, she could be elevator operator and they would just treat her as if she was not there. Yeah, so that's just another aspect of it. But he would send them to, so Dr. Tarleton went to he would go to St. Thomas Hospital. He'd meet with the administrator of St. Thomas Hospital. When he met, he would come in, he would get make a record. And he would say, we met with administrator of St. Thomas Hospital, administrator of St. Thomas Hospital, said so-and-so and so-and-so. And this, it's kind of like went on and on. I think he met with everybody, everybody he could meet with. And this went on from like until July of 1963. They would come and the bishop would come and send them back, and they would come and the bishop would come back. I would have been, 2 or 3 months, I would have quit. But you got this process that started, if you will, in February 17th of 1962. And then finally in July of 63, the letter stopped. Okay. What happened? Well, what I didn't put on that one is that in July of, December of 63, we had a new adjutant, and I can't say that word right, adjutor bishop appointed. We had Bishop Durer come in, and Bishop Durer came in, and then once Bishop Durer came in, well, let me show it on the other slide. But this is my idea that finally the apostolic delegates said, hey, as long as we had this bishop in charge, nothing's going to change. So they didn't change bishops, but I think they sent another bishop in with authority in this particular area. Okay, let me see if I can give you a slide here. Okay, let me go. Let's see. All right, I'm back to my little timeline. In December 13, number 3, Bishop Durer was appointed adjutant bishop, and he installed on March 3rd, 1964. 3 days after he was installed, I think this is when the rubber hit the road, as people say. Durer said, desegregation is a moral question, and under God, every man is equal. Okay, so he that was his position. And it was interesting in the sense that I think when I listened to when my senior Campion talked, and he told about Bishop Durer coming in and what he did, and Bishop Durer would be saying something on the issue of segregation, and then Bishop Adrian, who was still the bishop, he would be going out in a newspaper, a newsletter, The Wanderer. They didn't have the computer thing back then, all these little websites, but they would have The Wanderer, which was a conservative Catholic newspaper. And Bishop Durer would be saying, hey, desegregation is a moral question, and under God, every man is equal. And then Bishop Adrian would be kind of going in this Wanderer, and they would have articles saying, hey, we don't need to desegregate. Kind of a crazy kind of a situation, But my take was that, in this particular area, Bishop Durer was given charge, primarily my guess is because of, they have been working on this thing for 18 months and they actually gotten nowhere. Just a couple of other things. 1964, you have 5 Black students admitted to St. Bernard Academy. Interesting. I know one lady, and she wanted to go to St. Bernard Academy. She said, hey, I want to go. But what they did is they picked the 5, if you will, what they considered to be the brightest and the best to go to St. Bernard. So it was it was a question of, we have no problem with these 5 going because, all of them, they're smart, and all of them. And the other part, which I really didn't like, and which a lady didn't like, is that all of them's parents are doctors or from an elite group. In our community, they would be people who lived on the Gold Coast. That was, that was one of that was kind of the main thing that that was the big Black neighborhood. Now, on this point here, I'm looking at I saw last night a assessment from Cathedral. Apparently, it was, I don't know if you remember George Peabody College, but it was one of the premier institutions here. So they did a study on, you know, remember Cathedral desegregated back in 1910, so it's kind of like a 10-year study. And the result of the 10-year study, hey, how did desegregation go with the students at Cathedral High School? The lady who was saying the study, you know, the whoever talked for Cathedral, they said, you know, Cathedral, the students at Cathedral are just so happy to be at, I'm sorry, the Black students at Cathedral are just so happy to be at Cathedral because it gives them an opportunity to come away from the slums into a safe environment. Which, you know, I thought was kind of a paternalistic statement because most of the folks at the Cathedral, I mean, they didn't live in the slums, you know. I mean, you know, they were out there on the Gold Coast, you know, and you know, the Catholics were, you know, Catholics indeed were, you know, kind of at the upper echelon in terms of income. And the people who could send their kids to private school, they were also, who were the non-Catholics, they were also at the upper echelon. And, you know, when I thought about it, I said, you know, these folks are going, you know, I'm the only one I know that you know, kind of grew up in the projects. So it was, but the whole idea is the way you consider, to me, it was kind of paternalistic attitude, and it's the way you consider, you know, you are doing these folks a favor by allowing them to come. But anyway, that was what it. But you know, they only at St. Bernard, they only allowed 5. So you know, if you pass the test or whatever, you still wasn't allowed. You know, they took the top 5. The next slide is 1964. You have Willie Brown. He became the first Black to play in the national interscholastic league. Okay, and that was a big thing, you know. And he was, you know, he was a hero to me of the Black community. Now contrast him with Ronnie Lawson. Okay, and when you saw the article, it was in the paper. You know, they quoted me as saying Ronnie Lawson may have been the best athlete to come from Father Ryan. Well, actually, what I said was that Ronnie Lawson probably the best basketball player ever to come out of Nashville. You know, he was, I don't know if you know him, but when he went to UCLA and he set the records, the scoring records at UCLA freshmen that Kareem Jabbar did. But you have two individuals. You know, you have Lawson, who went to St. Vincent, then he went to Father Ryan. And then his father allowed him to go to Pearl High School so that he could play basketball. Then when he went to Pearl High School, they won 3 national championships, you know, high school championships. But then you have Willie Brown, who was the first Black to play in NIL. And sometimes I knew him, and I just said, you know, what would you do if you were Willie Brown and somebody on the opposite team, which is going to happen, would use the N-word on him, okay? You know, now me, I probably been out there ready to fight, but Willie Brown had a different tack. He was kind of, to me, he was kind of like the Jackie Robinson. You know, he had this nice personality, you know. The fellow used the N-word on him, he just, okay, fine. They said, throw me the ball. He took the ball, went down the floor and dunked on him. That was it, you know. But you know, that was in, okay. Okay, St. Brown, okay. Dr. Tarleton, and I'm just gonna line this up with Dr. Tarleton, Dr. Millett. When Bishop Dury came, he had what you call a kitchen cabinet, and they were advisors to him. You know, both of them were advisors to Bishop Dury. And the only other thing, and they later became Papal Knights of St. Gregory. Now, to me, that was a big thing, you know, and it's hard to, it was hard to track that down. You know, the only way I could find that they were Papal Knights of St. Gregory was that the family had the, you know, the paperwork on it. But that was kind of the way the situation was, you know, in 1965. Okay, and that's the other one I got there. Okay, now I wanted to talk, and I guess I've been here about 45 minutes, so I'm gonna leave some time for questions. But when Dr. Williams said, he asked who would, you know, his question was asked him, who were some of the Black people in the idea. So I just had a couple of slides, and I was showing, and I just wanted to just mention these folks. You had Katharine Drexel, she was a saint, she's up there by herself, you know. You had the order of priests, you had the Josephites, you had the Franciscans, you know, those were the two major order of priests. And you also had one precious blood father. Bishops, you had Byrne, Smith, Adrian, and Durrett. But then the black clergy, you had James Light, he was Archbishop, and he influenced in that. He came to St. Vincent often. In fact, he was the advisor to the first black pastor of St. Vincent. But the Franciscans had this, I mean, you know, they went Memphis, they went Nashville, so they came all the time. Alfonso Smith, we talked about him the last time, you know. William Adrian, he was kind of, to me, he was kind of lukewarm on the idea of blacks in the Catholic Church. To me, the time you had the most progress, and McIntyre at Father Ryan, he's the president of Father Ryan, he'll ask me sometimes, and sometimes in a meeting, you know, when everybody's there, he said, Bill, how do we get more black students? Or how do we get more black students at Father Ryan? And when I looked at those bishops, I said, okay, Bishop Byrne made a conscious effort to bring blacks into the church, okay? Bishop Durrett made a conscious effort to bring blacks into the church. The Catholic Church is a hierarchical institution. Okay, if you have a conscious effort, it's going to have to come from down, from the top down. I'm not just going to mention the black clergy, James Light. There's two pictures of him in the rectory at St. Vincent. One time I did a homily and I asked the person, whose picture is that in the rectory at St. Vincent? And, you know, more than half the people couldn't even remember it, you know, and half of them think there's two different people. But he was, you know, one of the first black archbishops and one of the youngest bishops, period. You got Ferdinand Cherie, he was in 2015, and that's the picture on the other side there. He was became the auxiliary bishop of New Orleans. And he'll also be here, I think, on the 12th at St. Vincent. Harold Perry, I talked about him. Joe Perry, he's auxiliary bishop in Chicago. He comes down here often. His Miss Winston is his cousin. He comes down. Arthur Anderson, he was the first black pastor of St. Vincent. P.O. Jackson, you know, he was the character. You know, if anybody knows Father P.O., he's the character, you know, and probably my favorite priest. And Dexter Brewer, everybody knows Dexter Brewer and Darren Combs. That's just some of them. The Order of Sisters of Blessed Sacraments, Daughter of Charities, Franciscans, and Sisters of Mercy all worked hard at St. Vincent. And I talked about the educators, Fred Humphreys, he was the president of TSU. He's also the president of Florida A&M State University. And Dr. James Lawson, Dr. Charles Johnson. Administrators, and I just put some folks' name in here, you know, you get Mary Craighead and Sister Sandra Smith. Those were the ones who started the first charter school in Nashville, very interested in education. Miss Craighead was the first black principal of predominantly white school, and what she had to do is she had to go out, and she did go out and talk to the parents, you know, went to door to kind of recruit the parents so that they would keep their kids at the same school. Black leaders, and I talked about those, Tarleton, Raleigh Wilson, King. Now Dr. Edwin Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell was he was the husband of Dr. Noella Mitchell. And it was interesting because he worked at Meharry in the radiology department. Dr. Tarleton worked at Meharry in the radiology department. And when they did this, when they decided to protest or challenge, you know, segregation in the Catholic Church, they did it kind of in a coordinated manner. You know, they thought about it and planned it. And Dr. Mitchell, he was over the Davidson County Independent Political Council. And back in the 60s, that was the organization that encouraged people to encourage blacks to vote. And also, it was fairly powerful in that some of you may know of Avon Williams, but he may have been Avon Williams' right-hand man. When Avon Williams came to town, he wanted to get into the political arena, and there was a very powerful lady that was a state senator, Dr. Dorothy Brown, and Dr. Mitchell went with Avon Williams, and they formed an organization to kind of overcome Dr. Brown and take it over political. And then, okay, let me go. My time is running. Oh, I just had the women. Let me go back. I had a couple of pictures, okay? On this one here, that's Father Pio at the top, with the Jerry curl. So I want everybody to know he had a Jerry curl. Actually, he didn't have a Jerry curl, but that was that was at St. Vincent, and that was an African fashion show. And only picture I can find, I can't find pictures of some of these people. So we used to joke all the time. So I said, okay, I said, you had a Jerry curl. So I found some kind of Jerry curl and throw it on top of his head, but that was him. And then the other one on to the left there is Sister Arlene, and I call her the Mother of Mercy and Justice. And she was, if you know Sister Arlene, you know Sister Arlene, but she's just, I think she turned 99 this year. She loves St. Vincent. She calls parishioners on their birthday. She just called me. She called me and wished me a happy Martin Luther King's Day, and wanted to know if I go visit people at the hospital. And then I think on the other picture was a picture of the ordination of. Wait a minute, let me see if I can move this over. Okay, I can't see it, but the bottom picture was a picture of ordination of Bishop Ferd, and one of the things in there is that you have a Black deacon, a Black bishop, and now the Black cardinal all in the same place at one time. And I just, to me, that was one of the goals of the church. Okay, Black clergy, and I just put the Black clergy. I just want to mention Dr. Millett. He was the first Black deacon in 1964. Let's see. Okay, and those were the Black leaders. I think I mentioned all of them. Yep. Freeman, Mildred Hale Freeman. She was the president of the Ladies Auxiliary of the National Medical Association, first female president of St. Vincent Parish Council. And the father was John Henry Hale. And he was supposedly did 30,000 surgeries, which was a lot of surgeries. And they started a Black hospital, across from Immaculate Mother Academy before he came over to. Now, the idea here was that when they did the letters, it was kind of a coordinated effort, because Miss Freeman, as a lady told me the other day, Miss Freeman was just the best English teacher you could have, and when they did the letters, she was the one that edited the letters and put them in final format. So it wasn't, I guess what I'm saying, it was a coordinated effort, in order to get. Okay, and then I just showed you some of the Black presidents. I talked about Charles Johnson, Raymond Lawson. It was Ryan Lawson's dad. He was president of FISC. And this other fellow, Hazel Carter, he was president of West Virginia State University and Philander Smith College. He was St. Vincent alumni. He went to St. Vincent a couple years before I did, and he held the little known fact, the scoring record for the Catholic Basketball League tournament, 27 points a game. And then down at the bottom left is Dr. Fred Humphreys. He was the president of TSU and Florida A&M University. He was a member of St. Vincent de Paul. And then you have Dr. Wayne Riley. He was president of Meharry and a member of St. Vincent de Paul. So, and part of that, I'm thinking St. Vincent really had a rich history. And it makes me think about that thing I read yesterday talking about, the lady talking about, hey, that this Black students are happy to get over here and get out of the slums. It was kind of demeaning. Okay, that was just, this would have been in here. This was Ronnie Lawson. That was the one who went to Pearl. He couldn't play Father Ryan. And that was him winning his, holding the championship for the third national championship. It's just some other pictures. Okay, but let me stop there. The other thing, segregation, the big thing they had, theology question, the segregation issue of faith and morals. And I put over here, I had the scales of justice and I had the cross. And that was, it may be a good place to end on it, It's the idea that, as a Catholic church, what position do we want to take? Okay. And shoot, I think I'm just about out of my time, so go on. I can take some questions.
We have some questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Question in the chat.
When was St. Cecilia desegregated? I'm thinking about the same time. And the reason why I didn't do any research on that, but when I was in the 10th grade, which would have been 1964, I got a ride with Charles Thomas, who actually lived at White House. I got a ride with him to school. And then on the way to school, we would drop his sister off, Deborah Thomas, at St. Cecilia. So 64 would be the same.
No.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, can I just say, I was in St. Cecilia's community, and I taught at St. Cecilia's in 1968, and at that time we did not have any Black students. And then my last 2 years in the community were up in Cincinnati. I was not aware that we took in Black students, but I do know that it was at least after 68.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, you may be right on that one, when you were there in 68. But I'm just trying to say is that I rode every day, and we dropped Deborah Thomas off at the Aquinas at St. Cecilia. So we dropped her off at school. That's the only one I know about. So I don't know where she went, but we dropped her off there. And I don't know if she was the only one. But that was my first remembrance of St. Cecilia's the one right there by Aquinas, right?
Right. Now,
Okay.
It might have been Aquinas. I'm not sure. At Aquinas, yeah, there might have been.
No. She was a year behind me.
Okay.
So, so I got a rap. That's my only reference to it. I'll double check and see. But I mean, we did, like I said, I had to kind of get a ride everywhere. But Charles Thomas, I didn't have a car or anything. But Charles Thomas did drop me off, and that's the only reason why I know that she may have been the only one there. And I don't know what happened in the interim, but I'll double check it. But I'm pretty sure she went to school there because of that personal experience.
The other thing I was thinking about, I had 4 sisters who went to Cathedral during the integration time. I don't think of Cathedral as one of the schools where, kind of the wealthy or elite people went, because one thing, my sisters had to go there because we didn't have the money, to go to the other schools. And at least for my sisters, it was a really good experience. And they had several Black friends, real friends. And so it was good years for them.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is, just in terms of the Black community, you remember we talked before that there was a whole lot of bias against being Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Black students, it was an you had to be able to get to school and get from school.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, and most of the time, and if you were Catholic, then that was fine. But I'm just saying is that not all, but most of the Black folks who went had a little money. Now, not all of them lived on the on the Gold Coast. I didn't. And a lot of them were in different places. But you had people who either Catholic, and they want to go with the faith, or somebody like my mama who didn't have any money, but she thought they would give you a superior education. So no, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
And I don't think Cathedral had tuition like St. Bernard's and St. Cecilia's had.
Gino told me Cathedral was free.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right. Then the problem would be is that you have to get to Cathedral. The transportation to and from.
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bus situation, all of that. Yeah.
I have a question. Well, appreciate the lecture. Deacon Hill is really educational. Are you hopeful on what's going?
Did y'all hear any of that?
No.
Sorry about that. Got some muting issues going on. As many of you know, this is a question from the chat. Father Ryan High School is named after Abram Joseph Ryan, Catholic priest, proponent of the Confederate States of America, known as the Post-Creed of the South, and also the Poet Laureate of the Confederacy. And so there's been a movement to change that name for obvious reasons. And so Bill and Cindy Lieberger ask, is that idea gaining any momentum to change the name of Father Ryan?
Okay, the question is, about changing the name of Father Ryan. I've been I don't think there's a big movement in it. I've been in a couple of meetings, okay? And you have some people who are very, very insistent on changing the name of Father Ryan High School. And you have some people who are are very resistant to changing the name. Most of the people I know, they are not in favor of changing the name. So to me, sometimes I say it's one of those heart and head issues. You got people that are coming at it from the standpoint of the heart. Hey, he's, and so it's something that's bandied around. I don't really think it has any traction right now.
My brother wrote the letter that was published in the Tennessean, and then he sent a letter, I think, to the executive committee of Father Ryan. I don't think he heard much, but he did write that letter.
I don't, I think some people want the idea. I don't, and I'm probably not the one to ask, but in my opinion, it's something that has not gotten much traction,
Right.
and it won't get much traction.
Bill?
Yes.
Sorry. Hey.
I was talking to my St. Louis Cardinal there.
There you go. You got it. Spring training starts this week. The issue that you raised, I thought was really interesting. At the end, you said, "Hey, this is the Catholic Church. It's got to come from the top." Did I hear you right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, here's my question. When you put that 8-point slide up, the eight or so points, my impression is that came from the bottom. In other words, it was the men at St. Vincent's in that league that they're the ones that changed. They're the ones that got rid of Bishop Adrian. Ultimately, I think, from what you said. So I would just kind of challenge that.
Okay, I agree with you, but I'm just saying, think about how much effort it took to do that. I'm agreeing with you, and I guess what I'm saying is I don't see any people here today that are willing to put forth that much effort, to do it, and that's the reason why I think that Dr. Tarleton, who's 100 years old now, okay, and when I look at St. Vincent, and I look at the leaders that they had, at that particular time, everybody was kind of united on that particular issue. So yeah, no, I'm agreeing with, that one came from the bottom. And, but if you look back in the history time, you look at Bishop Miles, the first bishop, he placed an emphasis on having Blacks in the church. You look, and then once he left, then the emphasis from the top was not placed. And you come up with Bishop Byrne. One person says that when Bishop Byrne came, there were 8 Black Catholics. Okay, he placed an emphasis on the top from that. And then it came, and it went up. And then it kind of went down again until you had Bishop Durick, and then Bishop Durick kind of placed an emphasis on that. And then the other thing is that I would say is that the biggest assistance to Black Catholics, containing Black Catholics, was the school. That's the way. I'm a convert, so that emphasis came from Byrne, and I guess it would Katharine Drexel. So now we don't have any Burns, and we don't have any Katharine Drexels. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, but it took a long time, to do that. Yeah, and I think you need both. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. You need both,
Well,
unless you have some. Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you now. I think your point was well made. Thank you.
Well, and we could also remember that it took Paul VI putting Durick here, moving him from Memphis to become.
John, you're muted.
You better, John.
Well, you could hear me.
Okay.
I was just making the point that Bishop Durick was appointed here by Pope Paul VI precisely to deal with the issues that were coming up with Bishop Adrian. So I think the both and piece is probably important.
One thing when you said something about Bishop Durick is that, he, in that letter from the Birmingham jail, he was one of the 7 churchmen who said, "Hey, Black folks, y'all don't need to listen to Martin Luther King, because he's gonna get you in trouble," because it kind of in the, and not same mode, but kind of in the mode of almost of a Bishop Adrian. It's just wait, it's not time yet. So it's I just want to know, Durick, in just a very short span of time, he seems to have had a what is this? They've been transformed. I guess it's the Feast of the Transfiguration, but transformed or transfigured in terms of his attitude toward race relations. And when he got here, I mean, you know, when he at third day after he was inaugurated, I mean, that kind of sealed his fate. I mean, he was a lonely man, and you look at a lot of literature, and they would call him the bishop's, I mean, King's Pope, King's Bishop. Yeah, King's Bishop.
Well, folks, I have 11:30. I'm happy to go for another 15 minutes if Deacon here would give us his time, but let's call this a hard stop for those of you who need to log off. I'll keep the recording going. And just a reminder that this Thursday at 7 p.m., a very interactive forum for us to hear about the work that's been going on and to propose some new ideas. So we'll keep going. Thank you, Deacon, for this. And if you're willing to take a few more questions.
I'll still be here. Great. One I saw was on Steve from Steve Meyer. I want to know if Dr. Tarleton was still alive. Dr. Tarleton's still alive, and he's still out there. I think, you know, he's either 100 or 101, but he's out there and he's still ticking. You know, I saw him about 4 months ago, and Doc was out there fooling with his car, and he thought his car wouldn't run. He's got one of these new cars, one of these cars that's quiet, you know. So he's still alive and still going to mass at St. Pius, probably pretty much daily mass, you know, as long as he can get there. But he's still alive, still, you know, very, very alert. You know, I went to interview Doc, and I thought I was going to take about an hour, you know, to interview him. And shoot, after about 3 hours, I said, well, Doc, you know, I need to come back, you know, because I mean, when he said, well, tell me about your life. You know, Doc started when he was 6 years old, you know, and tell me about his elementary. But no, just a true Southern gentleman, you know. When I said I admired Father Cyprian Davis, and Dr. Tarleton, they're both in the same. You know, in the same realm. Just I mean, you know, if you see him, you know, you just like, I mean, he just carries himself with such grace, you know, just.
Bill, if I could ask a question following up on that slide you showed on the impact on St. Vincent's when Holy Family was closed, it raises to me a question of, even when Father Ryan was integrated, or desegregated is probably the better way to put it, how much of the burden was put on the Black community? A year after Ryan began admitting Black students, I read a story that the Tennessean did. And it was pretty clear that at least in that first year, the real onus was on the Black students to prove themselves, to, quote, not cause trouble. And so from your perspective, what was the burden that was placed on the Black Catholic community in desegregation?
And I guess I would go at it two ways. You know, one, the first I would say, if you remember that when Bishop Byrne and Katharine Drexel got together, then the issue was, okay, who are we going to educate? You know, Bishop Byrne said we're going to educate Black Catholics. Katharine Drexel said we're going to educate Blacks. So part of it is, you know, what are you trying to do? The Black Catholic, I'm trying to think, and what I'm trying to think is, how many Black Catholics did you have that were going to high school at that particular time, you know? And that's, I guess that's what I'm trying to get in my idea. So it hurt in the sense, and you can see from those pictures, in the sense that Blacks were, in my mind, receiving a superior education at St. Vincent. I mean, what other reason would you have 40 people in there? So I think it hurt to me, it may have hurt the Black community in that sense. Now at St. Vincent, you would get a lot of folks who would go to the 6th grade, you know, go through the first 6 years. And like, who was it? We talked about Jay Johnson. You know, he went to St. Vincent. Okay, but then he went to Pearl High School, which was actually, you know, a good school. To me, I would phrase that in that it hurt possibly the black community, you know, in the sense that they didn't have a place to educate. It took away one of the places they had to have good education. The reason why I'm kind of jumping around is because, you know, I think Pearl High was a pretty good school back then, you know, with Miss Freeman. So and then too, if you had Black Catholics, you know, if say for instance, you know, if I'm a Black Catholic and I'm going to school, you had 16 that went to Rand, then does it help me to go to a Catholic school in terms of developing and keeping my faith? You know, I guess I would term it in those terms, you know. So from that standpoint, you know, I think it would have an adverse impact on the, you know, on the Black community, on the Black Catholic community, you know, in the sense that you're supposed to, Catholic school is supposed to give you the secular and the spiritual. So to me, I would say it would have an adverse impact on the spiritual education.
Bill, do you have an idea of how many of our parishes have Black people that are part of the parish? Like, I know Holy Name now. The Black people, many of them are from Nigeria and from Haiti, but they have a pretty significant number. And I'm just kind of curious about our parishes, and I've not kind of paid attention to the Black community within parishes or the Black people.
No, I don't. And what I criticize the folks at the diocese because they give you numbers on Hispanic Catholics, and they don't give it to you on Black, and they don't care. You know, I called out there, I said, look, that's on the website. I said, yeah, you know, we're here. But, you know, you probably, you know, I think Blacks may be 1-2% of the Catholic population. So it's not many. And then I know I go to St. Ignatius, you know, several Blacks, you know, at St. Ignatius, you know. The person asked me, and I'm not gonna answer this question, but I'm gonna tell you what the person asked me who's, and I'm gonna tell you who, he's over university school. I'm gonna tell you the question, but I'm not gonna answer it. Maybe in another year I'll answer it. He said, Bill, how does it feel from going from the Blackest parish in the diocese to the whitest? And I said, hey, I'll let you know after a year.
Bill, I have a question.
Yes.
Comment. I don't know if you're familiar. I went to St. Joseph and graduated in 1959. And I remember there was one Black child named Sammy. I probably never spoke to Sammy because I was so much older than him. If you ask my recollection, he seemed happy, accepted and all, but then one year Sammy was gone. I think it was Sammy Lavender. And I wondered in later years, why he left St. Joseph. Did his parents just want him around more Black students? And I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know Sammy Lavender. Sammy Lavender, I talked to him a week before last. In fact, I owe him a call back.
What was his experience at St. Joseph? Did you ever hear? Because it looked positive from a distance of an older student there, but he was there, you had to be mid or late 50s.
Yeah, he was there, probably mid 50s. He graduated from St. Vincent with me. He probably went the first 3 or 4 years at St. Joseph, then he transferred to St. Vincent. Sammy, we went to school all the way through Father Ryan together. And I don't know, I talked to him the other day, and it's the first time I talked to him, I'd known that he actually his parents went to Immaculate Mother Academy. And I think it may have been a situation, and I may be wrong on this one here, logistics, because, no, he had to ride the bus. He's like me, he rode the bus from, I think probably just wanted to go to a Black school.
Yeah.
You know, but I'll ask him, but my guess is that's probably what it is. Because he had to ride the bus. He rode the Galton Road bus. I had to ride either Galton Road or Inglewood bus because I stayed with my grandmama most of the time down on Straightway. You probably know where that is. So yeah, my guess is that's what it was.
Bill, can I ask you a question about your service at the Father Ryan Board of Trust? Maybe you know how the Inclusion Initiative project is going. I took the survey that they sent out, I don't know, last summer, and I've been trying to keep up on the website as far as progress, but I'm not seeing much.
I'm not on Father Ryan Board of Trust. I'm on one committee, I think. And right now they're just picking up in the fall. I think I went to one meeting. What they've done is they've hired a fellow named Young to kind of come in and do a proposal, but they've had one meeting. Okay. And so something, I think the pandemic or whatever, that kind of slowed it down. But they're working on that. And it's interesting in the sense that I'm on a committee, and it's kind of like, okay, how are we going to do this? Subcommittee rather. And people are talking, it's like a grievance process, okay? And okay, I'm a lawyer, so I know how to do a grievance process. So I told them it's a head thing, there's no problem doing a grievance process. But the problem is I'm trying to look at the hard piece. You're trying to see how people are included, and inclusive. So even if you have a situation where someone's grievance is denied, but how do you make them feel that they've been heard or that you care about and understand? So that's the thing I'm working with right now, because it's just, to me, it's not simply a matter of doing another grievance process, because that's what we've always done. I talked to the same person that talked to I was trying to solicit some money, if you will, from a person I went to school with. He went to Ryan, I went to Ryan, he went to Pearl, and his son went to Ryan, and and I talked to his son, and his son was actually a good student, captain of the basketball team, and the experience ended kind of bad in the sense that somebody called him the N-word. And then they went over to the school, and the response was, well, it's your word against his word. So, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe that is, but to me, you need to show some kind of, so that you feel something or whatever, do something, even if you don't take that disciplinary action, try and do something. So that's, to me, that's the, that's going to be the problem here. How do you deal with hard issues? I'm talking from a hard, okay, like the father, name of the school, that's hard, versus here, well, we've been this, it's been since 1925, why are we going to change because of that? And that's what the times were. So the inclusion thing, how do you make someone feel included? I've got a nephew, who goes to, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, who goes to Father Ryan, but people kind of joke with him. He plays football, and it's kind of thing, okay, is this just a football thing, or is this a racial thing, And I'm talking not only students, but I'm talking about when you have coaches. So it's this whole sensitivity issue, and one of the things I told him, I said, look, you need to have people trained, in this area. The administrators trained in this area, because you can, hurt somebody, desensitize them, or hurt their feelings. You don't even know you're doing it. Just the idea to be more sensitive. So it's picking up now. They hired Derek, and I think the first meeting was in November, December. So they got a late start. So now they're gonna pick it up. So I imagine, latter part. What is this? Probably the middle. They probably trying for the summer to get something out on it, but it's not much out on it. Not much has happened there. Just 1 or 2 meetings.
That was my impression, but thank you for that information. I also, just as an aside, the recent issue of the Irish Eyes had a little blurb, a whole page on the inclusion effort, which to me sounded more like, look how great we're doing. So I'm just hopeful that some things will happen with the heart issue, like you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you don't, it's going to be, I'm gonna give you an example. I give you a personal example, because I had 2 daughters, and one of them, when we moved back, I told her, I said, you don't have to go to Father Ryan because I moved you around so much. So that was kind of an agreement we had. But the youngest daughter, she would have been, she was, she's not quite as rebellious, so she would have went with you know, with little no problem. Well, when we went over, she took the test, and the fellow said, well, you know, we need to put her in the B class or C class or something, you know. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold it now, you know. This was the daughter who was the smart one, you know. I mean, who had done everything, and I took that as, I said, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, as to me, I took that as just, you know, he wanted to put her in another class because she was Black, and so, you know, she got a chance to go to Hume Fogg. So, you know, do I pay for somebody who, you know, maybe mistreated the father around, or do I do something, you know, I go to a school which, you know, maybe academically, at least at that time, just as good. So I chose the other. So sometimes you got to, you know, just you know, yeah, be careful, you know, be careful what you see, you know, what you do, and you know, just be sensitized to people, because you know, I tried to collect money from folks I went to school with, and I did, but part of the problem was that their children had been mistreated. In their opinion, their children had been mistreated. So I'm just saying, you know, it's just sometimes you tell people, you can just give people a hard no, or either sometimes you can say, hey, look, this is what we want to do, and this is we care about, you know, and I call it a soft no, you know, just rather than just.
Bill, your story is heartbreaking. The story about your daughter, it's heartbreaking, and maybe it's the core of everything. You know, it undergirds all of what you're sharing, and I just am so grateful for what you've offered us today. But that story is heartbreaking. Oh,
thank you. But she did fine. She went on, and both of them went on. And they did fine.
It's great at Hume Fogg, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You'd hope that by now it changed. I remember when I was teaching at St. Cecilia's, this would have been, in the year that I was in, it would have been around 68 when Martin Luther King was killed. Was that 1968? I think so.
Yep.
Okay. And when he was killed, I just was kind of shocked in two ways. One that was that, sad to say, many of the sisters were almost glad. They saw him as a communist. And then I remember I was teaching, and we had been at that time in some new religion book publishers, Sadlier and Benzinger, and they really were challenging the whole, you know, racial issues. And I remember one of my students, she was in the back of the room, and she just hollered out. She was so angry, and she said, "Sister, are you an N lover?" And I prayed, and I said, "Well, I don't think that's what I'd like to be called. I'd like to be called a people lover. I really believe that every single person that exists has been created by God and made in God's image, and we're called to love everybody." But it was just, it's such a strong memory for me.
Any more? Take it all as you want.
Maybe a final question. Obviously, we're going to be meeting this Thursday to talk about the creation of new ideas and projects to help this parish get involved in wider efforts to continue the work of integration and racial justice. Do you have any suggestions for us, either specific or general, how a predominantly white parish goes about, you know, doing more good as we kind of stumble through this work that many of us are new at?
I think I'm back with Jim McIntyre again. No, I think you're doing a good job, you know. And well, one, with this parish, I want to compliment you. And I think I told you earlier today, on two occasions, Christ the King is, I mean, Father Dexter's called me this year, really trying to want to know if there were any folks in North Nashville who needed help from the pandemic or from the tornado, you know. And I want to go on record as saying, you know, you know, we really do appreciate that, you know, especially, you know, it's, you know, it helps a whole lot of people. I think what you're doing now, you know, you've got a good start, you know, you're studying it. One of the things that bother me, you know, is that when people say, well, you know, I've got to go study and see if racism really exists, you know. I mean, no, it kind of bothers me, you know, with Bill, and I think what you're doing is you sitting down, you're discussing, you're involving others. My only suggestion would be that you have some Black folks who have some experience, you know, to be in there with you, you know, because it's, you know, like I said, you get the heart and you get the head issues, you know. But no, I think y'all doing a dynamic job, you know, going down the right way.
I have a suggestion. I'd love to see you all get connected with NOAH, Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. There is only one Catholic parish, which is St. Vincent's, that's involved. It has a strong anti-racism attitude, and looking at that racism in the areas that we work in, which is affordable housing, which is justice, which is equity and pay, and which is education. And they're spending a lot of time trying to look at the whole racial issue and how it is impacting each of these areas. And then the other thing is that it's such a mix of wonderful people. It's large Black population that are really engaged. It's people, you know, and Jewish people, Islamic people, you know, all other churches, and we are just missing. And I have to admit, it's very painful for me to see that.
Thanks, Irene. One of our working groups from last June actually was dedicated to that issue and has been working on that for about 9 months. Right now, and you'll hear more on Thursday night, but there are some canonical issues about whether parishes can join NOAH given its current governing body, and the way that essentially Father Dexter's notion, and this is coming from him, a parish is a geographical area. It is not necessarily a body of people who get to vote. And so until, you know, all of the people that belong to Christ the King want to join an organization, he's not willing as the head of a parish to make that parish join that organization. We can fill you in on a little bit more of this, but it's definitely something that's come up, and we're looking into alternative ways of getting folks who want to participate in NOAH's governing structure to do that without necessarily making Christ the King a member.
You know, John, you know, one thing when she said that, I suggested that, you know, not the parish itself, but either you or Jim may want to contact the local NAACP and, you know, ask them, you know, how you think to be involved. And then also you may want to contact Vince Dixie, who's the St. Vincent parishioner and a legislator, you know, make him earn his money, you know, and just ask them, you know, for some of their ideas. I mean, you know, what they think you could do. You know, those are two organizations.
All right. Well, thank you
And
all.
just to add, and this is where I have a problem with some of Father Dexter's arguments. You know, the NCCD, the bishops organization, they have supported all kinds of organizing efforts across the country. And for 5 years, they have helped seeded NOAH for its work. And these are the bishops who have, you know, approved of the money going to help the organization.
Yeah, these appreciate that. These are arguments that we have wrestled with, but we are Catholic, and so we're constrained by the desires of our pastor, at least in this case. But that doesn't mean that we have to stop doing the work.
Yeah.
All right, thanks all. For those of you who want to get involved, Thursday night, 7 p.m., you can register online at our website or check the weekly adult ed email. And thanks again, Deacon, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I really have enjoyed and appreciated
Thanks,
these.
Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
You're very